Okay, we are back on the record on case number 2210869 BM. Ms. Whitman, your next witness, please.
We call Megan Murtaugh Graber.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Matt Hagan. I'm the referee in this matter. You've been called as a witness by Ms. Whitman. She'll have some questions for you. And then if she chooses to, Ms. Belden may have some questions for you, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. If you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
Thank you. Ms. Whitman.
Ma'am, could you state your full name for the record?
My full name is Megan Judith Murtaugh-Graber.
And where do you live?
I live in Traverse City, Michigan.
And what do you do for a living?
My profession is I work as a mental health therapist.
And what is your educational background?
I have my license in mental health. It's clinical in the state of Michigan. That's a licensed master social worker. I'm also licensed in Minnesota. That's a licensed independent clinical social worker. And I also hold my Master's of Education in Youth Development Leadership.
And how long have you practiced as a licensed clinical social worker or in the area of child therapy?
As a licensed clinical social worker that's independent, 1.5 years. As a limited licensed social worker, I've practiced since the beginning of 2016, so January of 2016.
And you hold a master's in education?
Correct.
And where did you get that degree?
The University of Minnesota.
Is that where you're from?
No.
Oh, okay. What is the practice that you currently operate in Traverse City, Michigan?
I have a professional private practice called Caravan. It's CARE-O-van. And it is a play therapy, experiential therapy, and nature-based office where I provide therapeutic services to promote the healing and learning for families, clients, and adults with whom I work.
And do you have any specific focus or areas of expertise?
Yes, my areas of expertise and focus are around early childhood trauma, intergenerational trauma, chronic stress and family disruption, as well as loss.
I move for Ms. Murtaugh Graber to be qualified as an expert in those areas of expertise that she just testified to.
No objection.
So certified.
Are you familiar with Leo and Uma, otherwise known as Birdie Llewellyn?
Yes,
And how are you familiar with them?
I facilitate individual psychotherapy sessions for them.
And when did you begin providing care?
The initial parent intake was dated February 22nd of this year. My first individual session was March 3rd with Birdie. And my first individual session with Leo was March 14th, both of this year.
Who attended the intake session?
The intake session was attended by Aishwarya Nukala, mother.
And since that time, how many times have you counseled Birdie?
Since the time of intake, I have counseled Birdie 4 times.
And how many times have you counseled Leo?
2.
And have you had any communication with the children's father, Andrew Llewellyn?
Yes, communication was initiated April 5th through email, initiated by Andrew. And then I responded to his email April 6th.
And that was last week, correct?
Correct.
And what are the cost of each of your sessions?
$150.
Do you accept insurance?
I do not.
Based upon your interactions with Uma, Birdie, what have you observed about Birdie and how has she responded to therapy?
Birdie presents thus far in therapy with secure attachment to caregivers that I have witnessed, her mother and Tracy. With me in session, she presents with an ambivalent or avoidant attachment, which is developmentally typical in deciding if I'm a safe person to work with.
How has she responded to therapy with you? What type of therapy do you engage in with her, given her age?
She engages in play therapy predominantly.
And what does that mean? What does play therapy entail?
Play therapy entails using play objects, toys, and games to help create a balance within a kiddo's it's how they make sense of the world is through play. And so she uses play to help make sense of her experiences.
Why do you utilize play therapy?
It's developmentally appropriate for kiddos that are younger and less verbal.
And what have you observed during play therapy sessions with Birdie?
Birdie has used within this bus, you can see right here, there's a bunk. She uses levels to help establish a sense of power and control. So she'll use the bunk to get up a little higher than myself to feel safe and secure. And the play themes she has expressed have been around nurturance, themes of nurturance, themes of protection. Those have been the predominant play themes thus far.
Did you come to any conclusions or with regard to those themes that she expressed with nurturance and protection?
It's too early to make an interpretation at this point.
Do you believe that therapy is going well?
Yes, Birdie has shown progress relationally in using myself as an adult within her play.
Have you witnessed her with her mother, Aishwarya?
Yes.
And did you have any concerns about what you observed in her interactions with her mother?
No.
Have you witnessed her interact with her father?
No.
Do you have any concerns about, and you mentioned this briefly, Birdie's attachment to her caregiver, her mother?
No.
And what have you observed, if anything, with regard to her attachment to her mother?
I've observed a secure attachment thus far.
Is consistency and predictability an important thing for a child Birdie's age?
Yes.
Why is that?
Consistency and predictability help establish a child's sense of safety and a way they learn to perceive themselves and the world around them.
Do you have any concerns if Birdie was ordered back to California with the associated change of parenting time and school and home environment?
Yes.
What are those concerns?
The continued family mobility involved in
What
change
is that?
of schools, the additional change in schools, environment, caregiver.
Why would that be concerning?
Any additional disruption in regards to caregivers, schools, and environment contribute as risk factors for a child's establishment of a secure attachment.
You've interacted with Leo Llewellyn,
Yes,
and how has Leo responded to therapy?
Leo presents as very relational immediately, highly verbal, mature, and he's been interacting with me and engaged throughout the therapeutic session, the 2 times that I've seen him.
Is that notable?
Yes,
Why is it notable?
it's notable for the amount of change he's experienced to engage with me relationally on that level already.
Do you believe that additional changes would be beneficial to him in terms of a new school and a new living environment?
Can you repeat the question?
The same question I asked you about Birdie, I'm asking about Leo. Do you believe that it would be beneficial to him if he were ordered back to California with changes of school, location, and primary caregiver?
No.
Why not?
For the exact same reasons that I provided earlier, to maintain consistency and reliability in a school setting, a home environment, and a relational caregiver is of utmost importance to support a child in developing a secure attachment and a sense of safety in the world.
Have you witnessed Leo interact with his mother, Ms. Nicola?
Yes.
Did you have any concerns about that interaction?
No.
What did you witness?
I've witnessed, the only interactions I have not held joint sessions. The interactions I've witnessed have been at drop off when he arrives, as well as at pickup.
And did you interact? What did you witness in terms of their interaction? How would you describe it?
Nurturing and receptive.
Did you have you made any diagnoses of these children?
My clinical impressions are that they qualify for only one diagnosis as of now, which is an adjustment disorder, both of them, due to the level of change they've experienced within the last 6 months.
Do you believe it to be important for them to continue therapy?
Yes.
And do you intend to continue to treat them for so long as they're made available to you?
Yes.
Are you willing to include their father in the process?
Yes.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Ms. Belden?
Yep, thanks. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning.
I'm a Megan too, so
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you. Just a few questions. I know I just wanted to clarify. So your first session with Aishwarya was a parent intake and it was on February 22nd, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Had she waited a long time to get in with you?
Her initial email to inquire about aligning services was dated January 23rd
Okay.
of this year.
And then you said you first saw Birdie on March 3rd, so just
Correct.
for a month ago.
Mhm.
So have you been seeing her weekly it says you've seen her 4 times. You think about weekly you're seeing her?
She's scheduled to complete a session each week.
Okay.
Spring break interrupted that.
Interfered. Okay. And then you started with Leo on March 14th and you've seen him twice.
Correct.
Is he not scheduled for weekly? Does he have a different schedule for his appointments?
He is scheduled weekly, and due to my availability, I did not have availability to see him until that later date.
Okay.
And due to being in California, his most recent session had been canceled.
Okay. Okay. You said the first time you were able to talk to Dad was when he reached out to you on April 5th. Did you have any thoughts to reach out to him before? When you did that parent intake, did you think it would be important to hear from dad at that time too?
Yes, it's always important to have both sides of the story and the whole
Okay.
experience.
Okay. So is there a reason why you didn't reach out to him? You didn't talk to him until he reached out to you?
Correct. I didn't talk with him until he reached out on April 6th. My licensure is limited to only being able to service clients when they're on Michigan soil or
Okay,
soil.
okay, that's what I wanted to clarify was why he hadn't been connected with before that. Okay, that makes sense. So the first time you met with Birdie,
Mhm.
what was her demeanor with you?
Her demeanor with me was avoidant, being a new person.
Okay. But I think you testified earlier that was developmentally very appropriate.
Yes, for her to make her own assessment beyond the grown-ups assessment of if I'm a person she feels safe working with.
Okay. Did she seem like a happy child to you?
She presented as guarded and cautious.
Okay. And again, do you think that was just because it was the first time you were meeting her?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen that change over the 4 sessions that you've had with her?
I have.
Okay. Then you met with Leo for the first time on March 14th. How did he present when you first met him?
Skeptical in regards to therapy. And then that immediately changed around becoming really relationally open and trusting.
Did he seem like a happy child to you when you met him on March 14th?
He has presented with high levels of sadness.
And do you know what that sadness, has he clarified what that sadness is about?
He has expressed due to all the changes within his family system and environment.
Okay. Does that sadness, in your opinion, seem appropriate to you based on the past 6 months that you're aware of?
Yes.
Okay. So you've seen Birdie interact with her caregiver, Tracy?
Correct.
Okay, how many times have you seen her interact with Tracy?
I just need to it would be 7 times. Tracy was not present at the initial drop-off for Birdie's initial session. She was present at pickup.
Okay.
And each session after that, which has been 3, Tracy has been the individual that has helped provide transportation.
Okay. So how many times have you seen Aishwarya interact with Birdie?
Birdie has been in the car when Leo has been present for drop-off and
Okay.
pickup.
Okay.
And
So-
then the first time with the initial joint parent session with Birdie as well.
Okay. So about 5 times with mom. Does Birdie get out of the car when Leo gets dropped off?
She has, yes.
Okay. But 7 of the 8 drop off and pickup times with Birdie has been handled by her caretaker, Tracy.
The first initial session with Birdie, Tracy was present, but mom was present still at the pickup. So
Pickup, but not at drop off.
at drop off, she was the only adult present. Aishwarya.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. And then Ashwarya brought Tracy back for the pickup that day.
Correct.
Okay. Was your communication with Andrew Llewellyn appropriate? Did you
Yes.
feel like his inquiry was appropriate? He seemed concerned about the kids, or?
Yes, he
Okay.
expressed concern, particularly around Leo and his
Okay.
presenting.
Okay. I know you testified that consistency and predictability are important for the children. That makes them feel secure. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Is it atypical for a family to make a move to another state? I mean, is that something families juggle? Does that seem like an unreasonable thing for a family to do for a child's mental health to make a move to another state?
Can you?
Yeah. Does it cause you concern to see a family make a decision to move to a new area, to move out of state, to move to a new city? Does that in and of itself cause you concern for a child's well-being?
The concern clinically that I would have is around the mobility between states. Yeah.
But if a family made a move that, you know, someone got a new job and they moved to another state,
Mhm.
That in and of itself doesn't cause you concern for the child's welfare.
Every move between whether it's in state or out of state to a new home, to a new school is a risk factor in regards to that, a change within a child's experience.
Okay. But if both parents made the decision to move their family to a new state,
Mhm.
would you challenge the parents' decision to do that?
It would depend on the situation.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's when you say every move can cause stress for a child, and you said whether that's between states, between cities, between schools,
Mhm.
between homes?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's normal, that kids will have that stress, or that issue will arise for any change, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So Birdie she'll be 5 at the end of this month, is my understanding. Does it cause you concern that Birdie's been in 4 different schools since she started school at the age of 3-ish?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that she's been in 4 schools up till this point in her life?
That was shared during my phone call with Andrew and during intake. Yes.
Okay, so she had been moved twice prior to July of 2022, 2 different schools in this area. Then she moved to Pasadena. When she moved back here in January, do you think it would have been in her best interest to return to the school that she had last been at here, or to start her at a new school?
I would have to answer that with knowing that each environment is, if the environment wasn't a good fit, then no, it would not have been a good choice to return. But
if she had been happy at her school here last year, would you have thought it would have been in her best interest to have her return to that same school when she returned here in January?
depending on how she presents.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. obviously divorce is a stressor for all families, correct?
Yes, it's a risk included on the adverse childhood experiences report that contributes to elevated vulnerabilities for any individual.
Okay. So, is it out of the ordinary for Leo to have sadness, to present with sadness, based on what you know he's experienced in the last year with finding out that his parents were divorcing?
No.
No, okay. You testified a little while ago that you had concerns about ordering Birdie to move back to Pasadena because that would require a change in school. How would you feel if the plans were for Birdie to attend a different school next year in this area? Would you advise against that? I mean, do you have concerns about that? Switching schools again, even locally?
I would need more information around the reason for why. It all depends on if the environment is able to support and respond to Birdie's needs in a developmentally informed, appropriate way.
Okay.
If the current environment is not able to respond to the needs that she presents with, I would recommend considering other environments.
Okay. Are you aware that the children are currently living in a rental home in Northport, Michigan?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know that the plan is they have a, right now that the mom, Ishwarya, has a home in Lake Leelanau that is uninhabitable. I guess it hasn't been approved for occupancy at this point in time. Does that cause you pause to know that that lease that mom has in Northport is expiring soon, and mom and kids hopefully will have occupancy, but we'll have to move once again to a new home?
Yes, that would be an additional stressor.
Okay. Birdie and Leo have an older sister, Josephine.
Yes.
Do you think that that's another stressor, that siblings are separated right now?
Yes.
Okay. Have you noticed that specifically with Birdie and Leo, that they miss their older sibling?
At this point, I don't have enough information to be able to
Okay.
have observation. Yeah.
Do you know how long Tracy has been a caregiver for Birdie?
I do not.
Okay. If family as a whole made a decision to move to a different state, and family made that move, and one parent then picked up and said, I can't do it, and left the kids with the one parent, would you feel that was traumatic for the kids, that would cause stress to the kids, that one parent picked up and left almost immediately and didn't carry out the plan? Left and moved back across the country?
I would say any relational rupture is a stressor. And that is why divorce, in being a big change, is such a stressor. In regards to location, the transition between households continues a sense of high mobility, change, and disruption for all kids.
If parents were, Okay, if parents were to come to you when they are going through a divorce, and talking to you for recommendations, would you ever advise that, the parents live on separate sides of the country, and then try to co-parent that way? Would you think that was a good idea?
That's unique to each family, depending on what the relational patterns are within the family. If there's domestic violence or abuse, it's a very different, it depends. And I haven't worked with this family long enough to have gained insight to be able to say yes or no.
Okay. Ideally, do you think it would be best for children to have
Mhm.
both parents in the same area so that they can see each parent with regularity and see their siblings with regularity, for that matter?
Yes, depending on the level of safety the kids experience in each home.
Okay. Can you explain, is adjustment disorder, is that kind of an extreme diagnosis? Is that a alarming diagnosis? Is it a common diagnosis?
It's for the amount of change and disruption they have experienced. It's a very common diagnosis.
Okay.
It is a diagnosis that's given for a 6-month period and revisited.
So that diagnosis could change in 6 months.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. No, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any
you.
redirect, Ms. Whitman?
Very briefly, Your Honor. Based upon what you know, Ms. Murtaugh-Graber, have these children been exposed to more than a typical number of changes?
Yes.
And are you aware that Ms. Nukala attempted to enroll Birdie back in her previous school, but the Leelanau Children's Center was full?
I was not aware of that fact.
Are you aware that the teacher that Birdie has now, Sarah Johnson, used to work at the Leelanau Children's Center?
Yes.
And so a consistent teacher, would you agree that that would be helpful to Birdie?
Yes.
The home in Lake Leelanau, are you aware that these children used to reside in that home with both their parents?
Yes.
Would you agree that assuming that there's an occupancy permit and it's safe, that returning to a familiar home would be a positive?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Final questions, Ms. Belden?
Yeah, one question. You stated you understand the children have had a lot of change in the past 6 months. Do you know why that is?
I've been given information around the divorce and relational.
Yeah, can you what is your understanding of why there has been this much change for the children?
It sounds like from what was shared, there was high levels of conflict relationally within the marriage.
Okay. And that created all the change for the kids?
Again, I've only completed one intake and
Okay.
I can't speak to the full story.
Were you aware that mom's the one that requested the divorce?
Yes.
Okay. So mom effectuated that change, and she has every right to, but she effectuated that change in the marital relationship, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and were you aware that the parties had an agreement to move to Pasadena, California, that they both signed off on? Were you aware of that?
Yes.
And were you aware that mom flew the kids to California on August 9th with intentions of staying for a week before heading back to Leland to kind of get things squared away and slowly move herself across the country? Were you aware of that?
I was aware of the date that was provided at intake, along
Were
with the intention.
Okay, were you aware that mom, on August 11th, 2 days in, just decided to get an early plane ticket home or to Leland, fly back to Leland, abandon the kids on the first, Josephine, the oldest, had to start her freshman year of high school with mom not there. Mom caused a lot of conflict. Were you aware of that?
From what was shared with me, that there was complications in regards to lodging and reasonings behind for why those decisions were made.
But were you aware that mom made the decision to leave? Mom purchased the ticket, mom decided to leave 2 days after getting to Pasadena. Were you aware of that?
Yes.
Okay. Would you think that was in the children's best interest to leave the children 2 days after moving across the country?
It's dependent on the relationship, the conflict between parents and the relationship.
Assuming there's no domestic violence in this marriage, assuming that there's not high conflict in this marriage, would you think that that would be stressful for the children? To be told they're moving as a family to Pasadena. The parents are divorcing. They'll live in separate homes in Pasadena, but the kids will be attending school in Pasadena. And that's the game plan that the kids are aware of and the whole family is executing. And the mom gets there, throws her hands up in the air and says, I'm not doing this. And
I'm gonna object. Is this a hypothetical? Because this assumes facts, not in evidence.
yeah, it's a hypothetical. And picks up and flies back across the country, misses the first for the kids, misses helping the kids transition to the move. Would that be stressful for the children?
Hypothetically, yes.
Okay. Hypothetically, would it be in the children's best interest to have mom and dad present a united front? And when they make a plan, execute that plan and show that stability and security to the kids so that the kids feel more secure and safe?
Yes, if the emotional capacity of each parent is not impacted in a way that's maladaptive or limits their capacity to show up for their children.
Okay.
I think a larger context behind that is important to consider.
Okay, but assuming you have two very involved, loving parents that the children are close with, you would think that it would be in the children's best interests for both parents to be helping children adjust to a move and not having one parent do a change of plans last minute and move themselves to across the country.
If both parents can be a unified force with any change, that will only benefit children.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I have a brief rebuttal to that?
That's fine, but I gotta turn it over to Ms. Belden again, so we're gonna.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to do that so that it's not a part of an objection that I didn't allow you to, but this is a pretty standard structure. So if you'd like to ask some more questions and then she'll ask some more and then maybe you'll want more and she will too. So we have to let witnesses go at some point, but go ahead.
Ms. Murtaugh Graber, would it be traumatic for a child to witness one parent scream angrily at their other parent, push that parent out the door and slam the door in that parent's face, and then threaten to call the police? Would that be a traumatic event?
Yes.
This is hypothetically, right?
Well, actually, Ms. Nucala testified to that. It's not hypothetical.
We lost Ms.
We
Nucala.
lost Miss Nucala.
So for our witness, we'll just wait a second.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's going on with the wind in Leland? Something's going on. Something's happening. She's at an office setting.
Well, but we didn't, it was strange because you didn't seem to mind with the first witness and now you do. So I don't know how to, do we stop or I need to ask you each time when she leaves? Like our first witness, it was okay. You were
Yeah.
okay proceeding without her. And then the second time, second witness, you wanted her here and now you want her here for this one. You just let me know, I guess, what position you take.
The issue was that Sarah Johnson had a class full of people that she needed to go back.
But
to.
your client is still missing from an actual proceeding, so that's the issue for the court. So
No,
you're welcome to ask your question.
I just asked my question, Your Honor.
Okay, and I have no follow-up.
I don't believe she answered. There was an objection to it being whether it was hypothetical. The witness answered the question.
Yes.
She did answer it. I objected as Ms. Nucala was getting pushed out, and I'm fine with it. The answer's fine.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Megan, I love your caravan. That's pretty sweet looking at that background.
I
Yeah,
know, it's pretty awesome.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna come in.
I know, me too. And she has animals too.
I
Thank
Am I,
you.
am I permitted?
Okay, okay.
You're right. Thanks.
All right, so we have Tracy
Smeeds
Smez
Hepler.
Hepler. I'm not intentionally mispronouncing that. Is that our next witness?
It is, Your Honor. Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am. You're on mute. I can do a prompt here if that helps.
Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right, so you've been called as a witness in this matter by Ms. Whitman. She'll have some questions for you. And then if she chooses
Okay,
to, Ms. Belden. And then if she chooses to, Ms. Belden may have some questions for you, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. If you raise your hand, please.
Okay.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Whitman.
Ma'am, could you state your full name for the record, please?
Tracy Smeeds Hepler.
And where do you live?
I live in Lake Leelanau in Michigan.
And are you currently employed?
I am currently employed. Yes, I am a private nanny. So I have families who I care for their children, part-time, supplemental to the other education systems that they belong to.
And did you ever work as a teacher?
I did. I worked as a teacher for 13 years at the Leelanau Children's Center right in Leland.
And what was your position with the Leelanau Children's Center specifically?
I started off as an assistant teacher, and then I transitioned to a lead teacher. We team teach at the school, but the team teaching position holds the same amount of responsibilities as a lead teacher in any classroom situation after I completed my bachelor's degree in early childhood education.
And do you have any other degrees other than that degree?
I do not. I mean, I went through the whole course. So obviously I have an associate's degree. And then I went and got a bachelor's degree.
And are you familiar? Well, number one, do you have any children of your own?
Yes, I do. I have 2 children.
And are you familiar with Uma Llewellyn?
Yes,
Also
I
known as
am.
Birdie.
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with Birdie?
I started taking care of Birdie early February on the days that she doesn't go to her preschool program in Sutton's Bay. So every Friday, I have the opportunity to spend time with Birdie for her mom's whole workday.
And do you provide these types of services to any other children?
Yes, I do.
And how much time do you devote to Birdie each week?
I devote anywhere between 7 and there's been a few weeks where it's been nearly 17 hours.
So it goes from between 7 hours and 17 hours a week?
Yes, and 17 would be an anomaly. So when Aishwarya has bigger workload or less days with preschool open.
And how many times have you interacted with Birdie since you began operating or interacting with her as I'm going to use your term, a private nanny?
Well, once a week since February 10th, at the very minimum. And I'd have to look at a calendar. I do not keep track of how many days I've spent with her.
Have you had an opportunity to witness Birdie with her mother?
Yes.
And how many times have you had the opportunity to witness them together approximately?
Every single time that I have taken care of Birdie.
And what about interactions between Birdie and her brother Leo?
The only times I've ever seen Birdie with Leo are at school pickup time, and I don't feel like I would be qualified to note anything of interest in that matter.
Based upon what you have witnessed in regard to Birdie's interactions with her mother, how would you describe that relationship?
I would describe it as a loving and securely attached relationship. I had the opportunity as a preschool teacher to study attachment styles and interact with families and notice attachment styles. And I have only seen a bonded and loving relationship.
Did anything ever strike you as a red flag? Have you witnessed anything that causes you concern about Ms. Nucala's ability to care for Birdie?
Never, no.
How would you describe Birdie as a child?
Birdie is creative. She is loving. She's emotionally in tune, able to ask for what she needs and describe how she's feeling. And from my years as a preschool teacher, I have observed that she is at or above where a child is of her developmental age as far as cognitive and social emotional development.
Have you noticed the things that Birdie enjoys most?
Yes, I have.
What have you noticed?
I have noticed that Birdie loves art. She loves creative expression, pretend play. She likes to swim and dance.
And what have you cared for Birdie in Ms. Nucala's rental home in Northport?
Yes, I have.
And how would you describe that environment?
I would describe that as a safe, clean environment that is fully stocked with everything that Birdie needs to support her creative endeavors. There's a ton of art supplies that we use together over there, healthy food, and I know she has a routine there.
Have you assisted with Aishwarya transporting Birdie to and from school and to therapy?
Yes, I have.
How often and how does that work? How does that come to pass?
So some days I have picked Birdie up from school in Suttons Bay, and I, wait at the gate for her. She'll be on the playground. Her classroom comes out to the playground, and I pick her up at the gate and talk to her teachers and get to take her either back to my home or to Aishwarya's rental home in Northport. And then on Fridays, when I care for Birdie, I have taken her to her therapy appointments. And then I wait there and I pick her up from her therapy.
When you've picked up Birdie from school, how does she appear, or what have you observed with regard to her affect on the playground and leaving school?
So I have actually just yesterday, I picked her up from school and I saw her run out to the playground with a group of girls her age, laughing and conversing with them. They were playing a game, and she always greets me with a smile and a hug. She gets excited to go to therapy. She talks about what she might do there, looks forward to it. And as soon as we get to therapy, her eyes are on Meg, her therapist, and she is excited for me to go back to my car so that she can have therapy with Meg.
What other activities have you engaged in with Birdie?
I am really excited about doing art with kids. It's one of the things I excelled at when I was a teacher. And I actually have a developing side business where I'm doing pop-up art workshops with children. And so I am thrilled to support Birdie and her artistic endeavors. She always has ideas about the kinds of projects she wants to do with me. And we have spent hours and hours doing art together.
Are you aware that her mother is also creative and artistic?
I am, yes.
And how are you
yes.
aware of that?
I have seen art that her mom has done before that is very impressive. I know that she's an interior designer with a great reputation in our community. She found me and pursued a connection with me as it relates to caring for Birdie, because she knew that I was very interested in arts. And so I know that that's important to her.
Do you have, based upon what you have seen since you have been involved with Ms. Nukala and Uma, do you have any concerns about Ms. Nukala's ability to properly parent Birdie?
I have no concerns.
How would you describe their relationship?
I would describe their relationship as a close relationship. Birdie often talks about her mom when she is in my care. She looks forward to her mom picking her up. She has had, on the occasion where I do the bedtime routine, she's had trouble falling asleep because her mom isn't there, which is typical for a young child when they go to bed without their mom. So I know that her mom is really important to her.
How often have you put Birdie to bed?
I have put Birdie to bed 2 times.
And typically, are most of your duties pick up and drop off and during the day on Friday?
Yes. Only on occasion when Aishwarya has an extra big workload do I stay later than typical end of day 3:15 time.
Oh, we lost her.
You lost me?
No.
No,
have you now.
sorry, there she is.
Okay.
Miss Meetzepler, I just have one more question. Sorry that I neglected to ask you. How much do you charge for your services?
I charge $25 an hour for my services, which is above average for our community. I charge a high rate because of my experience and expertise.
I have no further questions,
Okay.
but I'm turning you over to Ms. Belden.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ms. Belden.
Hi, Tracy. I'm Megan.
Hi.
So you said you're a private nanny for families. Do you have more than one family that you are a private nanny for at this time?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So how many families are you serving as a private nanny for currently?
Besides Birdie, there's 2 other families right now
Okay.
that I serve.
And does your time with, oh, okay. Melissa, do you want me to wait or are you okay with me?
No,
going?
you can just continue
Okay,
on.
okay. Do you overlap your care with Birdie with the other families? Do you have all the kids together or no?
Rarely. Yesterday was the one occasion. I don't typically take care of Birdie on Mondays. And I already have a family who I have their child after school on Monday.
Okay,
So there was an overlap yesterday.
okay. So you said did you first meet Birdie February 10th? Was that your first day of working?
That was my first day that I took care of Birdie, but
Okay.
I met her in January. I Aishwarya asked if I would come and meet her and Birdie to talk about a work opportunity.
Okay, so you met her once in January. Do you know how long that meeting was?
I was probably there for 3 hours.
Okay. But your first day of actually caring for Birdie was February 10th.
Yes, I
And-
believe so.
And how many days a week do you said Fridays you care for her?
Fridays every week, but there have been times like over spring break or when Aishwarya has a particularly heavy workload that I have taken care of her more hours.
Okay. So, we're gonna keep going on. I know
Yeah,
Aishwarya is
that's
gonna bounce in and out. Okay, so Fridays every other week, what's the normal time that you
Not,
take care of
not
her?
every other week,
Oh, every week. I'm sorry, every
Every-
week.
Yes.
What time do you usually get Birdie and what time do you keep her until?
8:15 till about 3:15, 3:30, occasionally 4 o'clock.
Okay,
And then there's been several times where it's been a bit longer of a day.
okay. So, and then on average, how many days a week are you seeing Birdie? Is it really pretty much just once a week, like on Fridays, or are you seeing her on average? I know you said you fill in when you need to on other, at other times. Does that average out to like twice a week? If you average out February 10th till April 11th?
I would say, let's just say 10 hours a week
Okay,
would be the average.
okay. And you said your hourly rate's 25.
Mm-hmm.
So on average, Aishwarya is paying you about $250 a week.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Plus, it's $250 a week plus she gives me money for Birdie's lunch, or like I took her to the YMCA pool, which was $30. She always pays for extra activities like that. That's not included in my rate.
Okay. So you said it was $30 to take you. How many times have you taken her to the Y?
I've taken her to the Y one time, but every time that we spend time together, I also get lunch and snacks with her.
Okay,
So Aishwarya is always reimbursing me for that as well.
okay. And how much
Yeah.
does the lunch and snacks usually go for the day?
I want $20 a time.
Okay. Okay. Um. The first time you cared for Birdie on February 10th, was it immediate, like an immediate bond?
Yes, it
Okay.
was. Yes.
So I know you mentioned that when you pick Birdie up, it's always a smile and a hug. So from the
Yeah.
beginning, it was a smile and a hug?
I think she was more tentative. That I don't hug children unless they initiate a hug. And so she, maintained her distance around me, which is what's normal for a child her age, until she felt more comfortable. But like yesterday, when I picked her up from school, she ran at me with her arms open and she hugged me. But no, that wasn't immediate. And the first time that I took care of her, there was a bond, but she was definitely quieter. And now she just is very much more talkative.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you've seen a big change in her from February 10th to April 10th.
Well, I've seen her, not a big change in her, but she's definitely opened up and, uh, shown me more of who she is.
Do you think she seemed happy when you first met her in January?
Yes.
Okay. And you felt the connection with her and Aishwarya seemed real natural when you first saw her in January.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that she was away from her mom for most of the fall?
I was aware that she was away from her mom. Yes. I've never talked to Aishwarya about exactly how long she spent away from Birdie, but she did make me aware of that so that I could better support Birdie when I care for her.
Okay, did you see that? And did you see that come into play as you were caring for her? I mean, did you feel like you had to execute things a little differently because of that?
I don't often have to navigate that. If a child, like, basically how I use any information that a parent gives me is so that if a child asks me a question or exhibits certain behaviors, that I have the knowledge to know what might be underlying their behaviors and how I might respond to their questions. But I don't feel like I had to change anything about my behavior in order to support her. I do notice that she likes to stay close to me as I'm with her, but that can be really typical of young children, especially when it's one-on-one care and not in a group setting.
Okay. Having that background knowledge, I mean, does she bring up her dad to you? Does she bring up her siblings to you?
Yes,
Okay.
she
And
does.
does it seem appropriate the way she talks about them?
Yes, it does. It does. I have been around lots of kids over my years who are going through divorces, separations within their family unit. And Birdie does talk about her dad and Josephine and Leo, and her relationship, mostly just different things about them as people when it comes up. Like, this isn't a direct quote from Birdie, but if I played a certain song on my phone, she might say, Josephine likes that song, or
Okay.
my dad has that song on his phone. So, yeah.
Okay. Does Birdie seem sad to you, with being apart from Josephine and her dad?
She doesn't seem sad, like she's not ruminating on the concept of not being around her dad, and I don't really know what she's feeling inside
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
we're together doing fun things, and so it's hard for me to know, but she doesn't say things like I'm really sad. She
Okay.
doesn't spend time crying. So I know that she has mentioned several times that her mom and dad aren't together because they fight too much. And that's, typically what I might hear when kids are going through divorces or separations. They might say
Mhm.
that. So she said that to me. She knows that her parents aren't together.
Okay. Do you think any of that's atypical to you in your opinion?
Um,
Birdie's behavior, Birdie's reactions?
Birdie's reactions and behavior are not atypical. She seems, I'd much rather have a kid talk about what's going on in their lives that's painful than have them not say anything at all.
Okay.
And she can describe emotionally how she feels about it, but she hasn't outrightly said to me, I'm sad that my parents are separated.
Okay. And so knowing that how Birdie behaves, would you think it's normal that she could have been very happy in the fall in Pasadena, California?
Objection, lack of foundation. She had no knowledge of this child back in California in the fall. She only met her in February or in January.
Okay. She did not present to you as sad in January when you met her, correct?
She did not, no.
Okay. What does Birdie call you?
She calls me Tracy, and occasionally, well, not occasionally, she started off calling me Tracy or Trixie because she had a bunny named Trixie, and then she started calling me Grandma.
When did that start?
That started maybe I want to say a couple of weeks into my care with Birdie. I want to say she knows it's a joke because she giggles every time she says it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because you don't look like a grandma.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So you think she's just playing with you?
I think she's playing with me. I think she sees me as a close relationship in her life, and I don't know anything about Birdie's grandparents or if I actually remind her of a grandma, but the only, when I see my own children's grandparents with them, they spend a lot of one-on-one time with them. They always want to play and have fun. And that's what my nanny services provide. So maybe
Okay.
I feel like a familial relationship to her.
Okay. Okay. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Any
Okay,
redirect,
thank you.
Ms. Whitman?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You're all set.
Thank you.
Let's just go off the record briefly.